All right, welcome back to our segment Broken Cards in History. Today we're going to be talking about Painful Choice, which I deem as the most powerful card in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! So,
It very well might be.
yeah,
Now,
so
here's the thing. Go ahead. Go.
all right,
Go.
I'll just start off. So what does Painful Choice do? So right off the bat, a lot of people actually don't know what this does because it hasn't been legal since like 2003. It's a really, really old card. But what it does is it lets you choose 5 cards in your deck. You show them to your opponent. Your opponent picks one of the cards. They put it in your hand, and the other 4 are discarded to the graveyard. Now, I don't know why it says the word discarded because that actually has a big implication with what it can do. But the main point is essentially you're sending 4 cards from your deck to the graveyard, and then 1 card is going into your hand. The effect is really simple. It's one of those Yu-Gi-Oh cards that has essentially 1 line, like it's just 1 line of long text that tells you what to do. We know how those go. Draw 2 cards, destroy all cards on the field. Those cards are really, really broken. This card is by far, in my opinion, the most powerful Yu-Gi-Oh card in existence. And the reason being is because of what starts to happen in Yu-Gi-Oh after it was legal, which is insane power scaling, all the graveyard effects that became a thing, and decks like Burning Abyss, Shadal's, White Sworn, Teledad, Drytron.
It's absolutely unfair today. However, you don't even need to go to all the current bullshit to figure out how unfair this card. It was unfair in 2003. Like, it was always unfair.
Yeah, even with Exodia, like back then, Exodia decks would play this card and they would just choose like 4 pieces of Exodia and Sangan or some combination of that, and then you'd have to give them a piece of Exodia to their hand, and they play backup soldier to get back the other 3 pieces that got discarded, and then they just show you Exodia basically. Like that.
What happens if somebody handed you that? They handed you 4 pieces of Exodia plus Sangan. What card do you give them? You give them the piece of Exodia, or do you give them the Sangan? Like, what do you give them?
Yeah, you have to give them. You have to give them something.
Also, you know what's really fucked up? What if somebody plays Painful Choice and they only give you 3 pieces? Now you know they already have an Exodia piece. It's just going to get worse.
That's actually really tough.
It's just going to get worse. Think about it. People play 3 of a card because they want to draw it in their opening hand or like early. There's 5 Exodia pieces. There's a good chance when a person plays Painful Choice, they're not even showing you 4 Exodia pieces plus Sangan. Like it might be 3 Exodia pieces plus Sangan and Witch. Like,
so there's a lot of reasons why this card is broken, and one of them is it doesn't have any restrictions, so you can do everything the same turn you play it. Every card now that's really powerful says you can't enter your battle phase this turn, or you can't special summon monsters this turn, or you can't normal summon this turn, or you can't draw cards from your deck this turn, or you have to use this card to start your main phase, or you can only play this card once per turn. This card, you can play as many copies as you want in a single turn, so if you had a way to recur it, if something got it back, you can keep playing it. You can special summon as much as you want, you can normal summon as much as you normally would. You can do everything. It doesn't have a single restriction on it whatsoever. It's a spell card, so it's not, it doesn't take time to set up anything. It's like, I drew this, I'm playing it, and what'll happen is you'll choose 5 cards that in all scenarios they either lead to an OTK or an FTK, depending on if you're going first. Like, obviously it's an FTK if you're going first, but if you're going second and your opponent doesn't stop your Painful Choice, like, you could theoretically play all of your other cards out of your hand and have them negate everything else and then resolve Painful Choice, and that will just be game. Because of how powerful the graveyard effects of Yu-Gi-Oh cards have gotten over time, there are so many things like Danger. I was talking to my friend Garen today, and he said, yo, this card says discard on it, and the word discard triggers all the Danger monsters, which is fucking ridiculous, because if you chose 5 Dangers, they have to give you 1 to your hand, which is a good thing, and then they let 4 of them get discarded to the graveyard, which triggers all of their effects. I mean, it's just, you just lose. Like, there's nothing you can do. You're definitely going to die.
This card, man.
I mean, Dragon Rulers, you played back when 2013, like Dragon Rulers, they're obviously graveyard effects.
That was the last format I played in.
Yes, so you know how broken Dragon Rulers were and what this would have done.
Here's what I want people to understand. Before I say this, quick question. Before this all started, you hinted to some people saying that this card isn't broken. And I want to hear that real quick before I say what this card actually. I just want to hear.
Okay, so it's not that they're saying it isn't broken.
Okay.
It's more, well, I shouldn't say that. Some people actually think that it's not that broken, which is wild to me. But I will say this. I'm going to read some of the things that I have on my Facebook about the card and what people are saying in like a counter argument. So one guy says Dimension Fusion, which is not even close. Dimension Fusion is not even slightly on the tier level of Painful Choice. It's just not.
Dimension Fusion gets better because of Painful Choice, first of all.
And Dimension Fusion is a card that requires a bit more setup, and Painful Choice,
Dimension Fusion, you have to do things before playing it.
Yes.
And it has 2,000 life point barrier, which I get it. Costs don't life point costs don't matter. However, if I beat you below 2,000, now Dimension Fusion's not live if you don't already have it.
Right.
Painful Choice is live no matter what your board set. Like, Painful Choice is live from jump. Like, it's just, okay, this card's live.
Yeah. The main consensus is that for people who think Painful Choice is not the most powerful card in the game, I'm not saying it's the best card in the game, but the most powerful card in the game, the people who are saying that it's not, their main thing is it's not an extra deck monster, so it's not easily accessible all the time. Now, I agree that it's not like you're going to always have Painful Choice, but as far as power goes, like the conversation of power, like what card would I rather have in my opening hand? If I could choose a card to have in my opening hand pretty much every game, I can't imagine that this would not be one of them. I think that in every format in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, Painful Choice would have been a staple if it was legal. I don't think that it would have been taken out of any deck. I don't think there's a single deck that you could argue I'm not going to play Painful Choice, because it's not even it's not a minus in any kind of way. It's a 1-for-1 at worst. Like at the very worst, if your deck is some trash like Gear Gia nonsense or something, at worst, it's still, I get this card to my hand. I searched something from my deck and added it to my hand.
Let me say kind of how I think about this card. First of all, Foolish Burial, is that currently banned or at 1?
Foolish Burial is at 1.
Foolish Burial, was it ever banned?
I don't think Foolish Burial was ever banned.
Okay, Foolish Burial is at 1. Foolish Burial says send 1 card from your deck to the graveyard. It's at 1. Okay,
it's at 1. I see where you're going.
Reinforcement of the Army.
I see where you're going with this.
Search your deck for a level 4, level.
It's also at 1 right
whatever.
now. That card's
That's
at 1.
also at 1. Okay, Future Fusion, I believe, was banned at one point and is currently off the ban list, but heavily nerfed.
It's it's not even the
completely
same
changed
card.
what Future Fusion does.
They ruined it.
Painful Choice is all of those cards and then some. Painful Choice is 4 Foolish Burials in 1 card.
Yep.
You send
and a Reinforcement
4
Army
cards to the graveyard, and you search your deck for any card you want. You get any card in your entire deck to your hand, and 4 of them to the graveyard. You play fucking Foolish Burial 4 times, and search your deck to add a card to your hand. Any card, spell, trap, monster, whatever they decide to put in your hand, and that's 1 card does that. So, like Fraser said, it's a 1-for-1. Yeah, it's a 1-for-1 in that you play a card, get a card in your hand, any card from your deck, and then you also get 4 fucking cards in your graveyard that are just going to fucking do shit.
Yes. I also don't like the fact that Painful Choice doesn't tell you that the cards have to be different names. So
no, they don't have to be different names.
Sometimes it can literally just be, I'm choosing 3 copies of this card and 2 copies of something else. We were saying, I don't know, you don't know what Sky Strikers are, but I was talking to my friend about this in the DM, and on a very simplistic basis, you could play Painful Choice and choose 1 copy of Engage, 3 other spells, and 1 copy of Ray. And honestly, that is too much, because Sky Striker Engage, I'm going to explain it to you, Kenny, because you don't know what it is.
Yeah, because I don't know what Sky
It's a spell card that says if you control 3 spells in the grave, right? If you have 3 spells in the grave, you draw a card and you search any Sky Striker card from your deck. So normally, if you don't have 3 spells in the grave, the card just searches a Sky Striker card, which is still a powerful effect. It's a rotor for your whole deck, so it can search anything in your deck, and all the cards say Sky Striker. But if you have 3 spells in the grave, it also happens to draw a card for no fucking reason at all.
No fucking.
So it's a pot of greed in a way. It's rota and a +1. It searches out a thing, and it also draws a random card.
That's insane.
So it's a +1. It's a spell, literally has a +1 ability built into it. You could play it multiple times in a turn. The deck has an extra deck monster that when she's summoned, she adds any Sky Striker card from your graveyard to your hand. So you go play Engage, search a thing, draw a card, summon this monster called Kagari, add back Engage, play it again, search a thing, draw another card. So now you're +2 on just this turn. Yeah. And if you have you can also play if you draw multiple of them, because one of the cool things that used to happen in 2018 or 19 was you would play Engage and be like, oh, I drew another Engage, activate Engage.
That's fucked up.
That's like a very basic. That's not even really crazy. That's just so much advantage off of this 1 card being played that it does all of it instantly sets up my graveyard for that. But that's not even the most ridiculous things that we can think of.
The thing about Yu-Gi-Oh is that it's very much become a combo game. It's all about combos.
And the graveyard
is a 1-card combo. Painful Choice sets up just about every combo you want to do, and it's 1 card. You don't really need any other cards.
The best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh right now, as of right now in 2021, we're making this video, it's August 17th, 2021. Every single real deck right now would play this card. I just don't think that there is a deck that would not.
I can't imagine every fun deck would play this card. Every deck would play this card.
Probably. Every fun deck would probably play this too.
This is just all this card. This card is literally, it's Upstart Goblin without giving your opponent 1,000 life points and 4 Foolish Burials. It's You're getting a card and you're sending 4 cards to the graveyard. You give them, you put 5 cards on the table and you go, I don't know, pick what card kills you.
Yeah,
but that's what painful
someone
choice
said that too. They were like, pick how you want to die, because a lot of the times it's going to be no matter what you give me in this scenario, you're actually dead. Like it doesn't matter what you choose. All 5 of these in this situation we're in right now is game. One of the arguments that was like, oh, painful choice, it will be a dead draw. And I don't understand how painful choice could ever be.
If you have 5 cards in your deck, if you have 5 cards in your deck, it's not a dead draw.
Like, how could it be a dead? Like, first of all, how long is the game going? Because we all know right now, Yu-Gi-Oh games last literally 3 turns max. Like, they're like, you go first, you set up a board. I either break it or I don't. If I break it, I'll probably win. If I don't break it, you probably kill me on turn 3. So games go really, really fast right now. I don't really know.
Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't go back and forth anymore.
Yeah, so like, how long do games need to be for painful choice to resolve and be like, it's a dead draw? Like, if I don't have it on turn 1, but I draw it on my second turn, it could actually help me to break your board. Like, imagine sending 5 Shaddoll monsters. You choose like Shaddoll Beast, Shaddoll Dragon, Shaddoll Hedgehog, all just 5 Shadolls. Shadolls all activate in the graveyard as well. For Kenny, you weren't around at that time, but Shadolls, they're all graveyard effects. So you activate painful choice, you choose 5 of them, they give you 1, you don't really care which one, and then the other 4 start activating. Pop a back row, search your deck for any Shaddoll card, do this, do that. Like, none of it is okay. Again, this is also very basic too. This is not, because there's FTKs with painful choice that I'm not even going to go into because that shit is super degenerate, but that's what I'm getting at.
So back in 2003, when this card got banned, right? It got banned. Now every deck ever could play it now. Back in 2003, some people didn't play it, but I don't know. Some people were dumb.
Mainly Chaos decks and Exodia decks.
But Chaos decks, I hand you 5 cards. It's Chaos Emperor Dragon, Blackluster Soldier, and 3 Chaos Sorcerers or something. Like let's say my graveyard's already set up. You know what I mean? Like, here you go. Or it's, 2 Darks, 2 Likes, and a Chaos Monster. It's like, oh, okay, cool. And then I play a card, get the Chaos Monster back to my hand, or
no matter what you do, I'm set up now for the rest of the game. Like, lights and darks aren't a thing. And you gave me something to my hand too. So at the end of the day, again, you're still going 1 for 1. At worst, it's a 1 for 1. You, like my one friend said, you probably back in the day would always choose Sinister Serpent, and then they pretty much give it to you every time. And that's still fine. Yeah,
because Serpent was legal.
Yeah, that's still fine. Like, I still have all my lights and darks and everything. Like, and I just searched Sinister Serpent, which in GOAT format is very useful for Graceful Charity, for Delinquent Duo not being a a -1 to you, and all the things that is good for Metamorphosis, whatever. Sinister was actually good back in the day before he got absolutely destroyed. But the point is, painful choice.
Yeah.
Who's it painful for? Is it painful for the person that's playing the card, or is it painful for the person who has to choose one of the 5?
That's like I was saying, that's how this card was designed. When Konami designed this card, they were like, oh yeah, this is going to be a painful choice for you. So you're going to have to search your deck. Like, oh, I don't want some of these cards to go to the graveyard. It's, oh man, it's painful for me to pick these 5 cards. Right. I don't know. But it's not painful for me at all. Okay. No. I'm picking 5 cards that'll kill you. And you sit there for 10 minutes figuring out, and you can fucking roll a die, because it doesn't matter which one you give me, you're losing. Like,
I'm just going to go through a couple of like quick scenarios of people just playing painful choice in formats that, in the last 10 years. So in 2009, or I should say that's even further back. So now we're 12 years, 11 years back. In 2009 though, Lightsworn, you play painful choice and you go, I choose 4 different names and a Judgment Dragon, or I choose 5 different names, and it doesn't matter which one you give me. I have 4 different names engraved now, so Judgment Dragon can just be summoned on turn 1 following this card. And you also gave me a card to my hand. Again,
how does Wolf read? Does Wolf activate off this or no?
I don't know, but if he does, then it makes the card that much more ridiculous. Like, if Wolf activates off of painful choice, then that's just absolutely insane, because you just choose 3 wolves and like 2 Necro Gardeners. They're going to give you a Necro Gardener or a wolf, and then you're like, I don't really care what, like, I'm just going to summon all of these out.
Yeah, I don't remember how Wolf reads, so I don't know, but
I think he has to go from deck to grave, and I almost want to say, because of how poorly painful choice is written, because it's so old,
it's worded really bad. Is it discarding from my hand, or is it discarding from my deck? What is
right, or is it discarding from a zone that's not even clear where that zone is, like a zone that's not even the hand or the deck, which is kind of how it reads. The card definitely would need to be reworded if it were to ever come back. Obviously, it never fucking will. And if it did come back, they would need to errata.
Yeah, it's just going to be nerfed. It's going to be like, you can't do anything from your graveyard this turn.
You can't do anything this turn. You can only play painful choice. The turn you play painful choice, you can only play painful choice. You can't special summon any monsters. You can't normal summon any monsters. You can't play any more spells. No traps. Now, it would say so many restrictions that they might as well not even try to errata it.
Yeah, the most current errata is still pretty unclear with that. It is select 5 cards from your deck and show them to your opponent, period. Your opponent selects 1 card among them, period. Add that card to your hand and discard the remaining cards to the graveyard.
Yeah, so it still says the word discard, which is crazy.
Yeah, it still says discard in the most recent errata of it. It's still not clear where it's discarding from.
Yeah, just not okay. That's 09. You have Satellar Knights, where you could choose 3 copies of Deneb and 2 copies of Altair, and this is one that was messaged to me by my friend again. And I thought about it, I was like, holy shit, that's also really good too, because no matter what they give you, if they give you 1 copy of Deneb, your whole deck is set up now. If they give you a copy of Altair, obviously, that brings back Deneb, who then sets up your whole deck. So they're going to give you a copy of Deneb. It searches the whole deck for everything that you were using Satellar Knights. It stops the whole bricking, and it kind of removes copies of cards that you don't want to see multiple copies of anyway. Like, you don't really need to see Deneb. After you summon one of it searches your deck for any Satellar Knight. You kind of don't really need to see multiple copies of it. Like, I get the one, and that's good.
What about fucking Teledad? Like
Teledad, yes. Malicious, Plague Spreader Zombie, a bunch of other cards that are just like, I don't care what you give me in this scenario.
People play like Dark Grepher and Armageddon Knight for that purpose.
Yep.
So Painful Choice and Teledad. Like, I can't think, if you can think of a single fucking competitive deck that wouldn't use Painful Choice,
I don't think there's
okay,
thing.
fine.
I don't think there's a single thing.
There's not.
Infernities. Imagine fucking Infernities with Painful Choice. Like, seriously.
Yeah. Like,
imagine Infernities with Painful Choice. Like, oh, okay, like, send all these to the graveyard, set everything I have no hand now, start popping off on Infernity cards.
And then even those decks that want to play a little slower for whatever reason, like you said, you mentioned Necro Garden. Imagine like 3 Necro Gardeners and maybe 2 other graveyard effect cards. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, graveyard effects have taken over Yu-Gi-Oh! The Drytron deck, this is a current deck. They're essentially graveyard effect monsters that, they pop out. So if you send a bunch of those to the graveyard, same thing. You can send a ritual spell to the graveyard, which you can recur super easy. Another graveyard effect. There's graveyard effect spells. There's Metal Foes Fusion that came out. So I'll explain it to you, Kenny. Metal Foes Fusion is a spell card that was played in a deck called Metal Foes, but it's also played in decks like Sky Strikers because they created a card called Foolish Burial of Goods, and it sends spells and traps from your deck to the graveyard. So there's a Foolish Burial now for spells and traps. That card sends Metal Foes Fusion to the grave. Metal Foes Fusion says you can return this card to your deck to draw a card. Okay. So essentially, Foolish Burial of Goods.
Wait. What'd you say? The card reads, if this card exists in your graveyard, you can put this card into your deck and draw a card?
That's what Metal Foes Fusion does.
What?
Yep. This card has been out for a very long time, by the way. It is a
Painful Choice in 3 of those.
Yeah. So, I think you can only use 1 of it per turn because it's a more modern card. So
that's fine.
But you're smart though.
I'm fucking getting 3 of them.
You're trying to break the game. You're trying to break the game, and that's what you're supposed to do.
I get to draw a card every turn? Sure.
Yeah. It's literally meant to break the game. So Painful Choice again, you can send Metal Foes Fusion, a bunch of other cards, and then they have to choose something. If they choose Metal Foes Fusion, it's like, okay, that's fine. Like if I'm playing, especially if you're playing Metal Foes, because that was the meta at one point. That actual deck. But if not, like at any point, if you Twin Twister, like I'm discarding this and popping 2 back rows, then I'll draw a card. Like it has so many implications throughout history that you can pretty much put it in any deck. It's good in Goki. It's good in Thunder Dragons.
Even a deck that I don't think was ever, to my memory, it was never the best deck. But Elemental Heroes, right? Like they use Future Fusion, they have Miracle Fusion. So like if I play
Miracle
Painful Choice,
would be really good with that.
Yeah, Painful Choice, and then 5 of my key heroes or whatever.
Burning Abyss, which is a full graveyard deck. Burning Abyss, all of them would trigger. You could be like send Skarm, send Graf, send Seer, send like the other two other ones that Farfa. If they have a monster in the field that's like negating and then something else, you're like send all 5 of these to the graveyard. Chain Link 1, Chain Link 2, Chain Link 3, Chain Link 4, Chain Link 5. Structure your Chain Link in a way where they can't negate the ones that you really want to go through. So you make them 1 through 4, and then 5 is the one that you don't care about.
Yep.
You're like, this one will be Chain Link 5, so you can respond to this one, but the rest of the 4, you cannot respond. Start doing all their effects and just win the game off of sheer advantage. Like a lot of times, at a very small level, you can win the game with Painful Choice without doing some crazy FTK that requires no interaction. It will just be a sheer overwhelming advantage that you have. Like, you'll just create a board
in a situation that like they're not really going to be able to deal with.
Yeah.
Even if you don't kill them that turn. There was a dragon deck. I don't remember if it was ever super meta. I remember there was a dragon deck that used Future Fusion. And it had
Chaos Dragons.
Yeah, and it had like the 5-headed dragon in there just so you could send all these dragons in a graveyard.
That deck was
and then you would
really
use
good.
the dragon, it was basically a Miracle Fusion for dragons.
Yep.
Painful Choice in that deck.
Dragon Mirror, yeah. Chaos Dragons would be very good. Any deck in pretty much Yu-Gi-Oh's history would benefit from this card. And I don't think that there's even spells right now. Like in current Yu-Gi-Oh, I don't even know if there's a spell right now that's anywhere near close to the pot. Yeah. They're playing Pot of, I don't know, Prosperity and shit like that to try to mimic effects like this, to try to get somewhere near close to Pot of Greed, or somewhere near close to Graceful Charity, or somewhere near close to,
I love the art.
Things like Painful Choice.
Look at the art.
You said what?
I just randomly I was looking at the art. It's like, the art's so good.
Yeah. These people have to like give up something, it looks like.
Look at them.
Yeah. No, that hurt.
They just got handed a hand right there.
The one guy on the left with his hands up, he's just like
Yes.
going through. He's just absolutely going through it. Like he gambled his house away.
The soldier in the back is who won the tournament, and everybody else is who lost the painful choice. Like
he lost his kids and his house. You could tell. Look at him.
I do think that off the top of my head, I can't really think of a card that on its own just kind of does everything that you want to do right away.
Yeah, I think every deck wants to painful choice turn one, and there's also the stupid argument of, oh, it can be negated, but like every card can be negated.
Yeah, I mean,
like there's negate, like everything can be negated.
Solemn Judgment reads your opponent doesn't get to play the game.
Yeah, like
Solemn
every
Judgment
card outside of super polymerization
everything.
and like 3 other cards can be responded to. So obviously, yes, if your opponent has a card in their hand to negate painful choice, they can negate painful choice. But if you play smart, obviously knowing that painful choice is the most powerful card in Yu-Gi-Oh!, you would try to bait out whatever they have in their hand, whatever hand traps they might have. You would try to negate, bait out the Ash Blossom, bait out whatever it is, and then go from there. Very common sense. If you've ever played competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Ever, like you don't start off with your strongest search card. You try to see what your opponent has. You feel around and see what they can do. And then once you realize, oh, you don't have any more responses, activate painful choice, and they're just like GG. And they're probably just gonna scoop. Honestly, I wouldn't even play the game out.
You know what would be funny? I know this isn't the case, but how funny would it be if somehow it got ruled that sending 5 cards from your deck was like a cost?
Oh, that's
like,
wild. So
you negate painful choice.
That's wild. That's fucking wild. I mean, you made it even more broken. Because at that point, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you do if that was the case. Like you can negate the effect, but I've already sent 5 cards to the grave, so there's literally nothing you can.
Man, that'd be funny.
That would be outrageous. It's already outrageous in my opinion, but like you just turned it up way too much.
So you would say you rank this card above like even the card like the classic Chaos Emperor Dragon and every just every Forceful Century.
Because here's the main reason why I rank it higher than pretty much every other card. It doesn't need any setup to work.
Yeah.
It doesn't,
and it sets up all the other cards you think are broken. It sets them up.
Right.
It sets up Chaos Emperor. It sets up Dark Arm. It sets up JD. It sets
like
up
people like talk about Firewall Dragon and Lavalval Chain. Like, yes, I get it. Those cards are great. They're extra deck monsters. You can summon them once you meet the requirements to summon them, which technically means they still require some level of setup. But Painful Choice is a card that when you draw it, it could be the only card in your hand. You could have nothing else. You can literally start the turn off. Your opponent has 6 cards. You have Painful Choice, and that's all you have. And you go Painful Choice, and if it resolves, it's game. Like it can literally FTK them. It can OTK them. It can create so much advantage that them having 6 and you having just Painful Choice, you will actually at the end of your turn have more card advantage than they do from just Painful Choice and them having 6 cards in their hand. So I don't really think that there are many cards in a game that don't require any setup whatsoever. Like my 40 card deck is all that needs to be on the side of me, and Painful Choice will do what it's supposed to do.
Painful Choice is the setup.
Yeah.
I don't think it's close. I think anybody that doesn't think this isn't one of the most powerful cards, if not the most powerful.
Yeah, it's like top 2 and it's not 2.
It's top 2 and it's not 2.
Yep. So real quick, I want to shout out to our patrons at the highest tier, Connie, Leon, who just joined, and Austin. Shout out to you guys for joining our Patreon. We appreciate you for helping us out with the podcast and the expenses that go into this. Also, you guys are allowed to challenge us to a duel at any point. So if you want to act on that during the month,
any format.
Yep, any format. If you guys want to just randomly challenge us to a duel, then by all means, go for it. And we can even play the format where Painful Choice was legal. I guess predating the ban.
And hey, even if you want, we can have even more fun. You can pick a current format and say Painful Choice is at 1.
That would be fun. That would be really fun, actually. That would be actually cool, like hypothetical Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, hypothetical Yu-Gi-Oh. Like, all right, we're playing in this format plus Painful Choice.
Yeah, fuck it. We can do that too. That'll be fun. But anyway, all right. Have a good one, guys.